Diana sat down inside. John, honestly, I don't even know myself. Everything seems fine, but I just don't believe him. I don't believe in his sincerity. I understand that Elizabeth is in love. She doesn't see any flaws. But I myself have this ambivalent feeling. I blame it all on the fact that we just don't want to give our daughter to anyone. Diana stubbornly shook her head. John, if everything is fine, let's just say we were joking. Well, I don't know, we'll come up with something. Why all this, Diana? John sighed. Okay, let's go, said John. All right, let's go. I really feel very uncomfortable in this outfit. God forbid someone sees me. Diana smiled. Trust me, no one will recognize you. And they won't even look at you. Our acquaintances from our circle rarely notice those who are down there somewhere. John sighed. His wife had been helping those people who were down there for many years, helping with document recovery, helping with jobs. Some fell down and climbed back up again. And some lived, worked, sometimes quite successfully. There was a time, many years ago, when Diana, desperate to have a child, threw caution to the wind and, as she put it herself, went off the rails. Their family life hung by a thread then. Diana simply didn't listen to John. She came home later and later. Every time she woke up in very dubious company. One day, Diana sobered up and thought it was time to put an end to this. There were very dangerous people around her in the underworld. She swore to herself that if she got out alive and unharmed, she wouldn't touch a drop of alcohol again. There were people in the company knee-deep in the sea, and alcohol didn't interest them much because they were long hooked on entirely different substances. And there was also a pregnant woman there who, grabbing Diana's hand painfully, whispered, "Save me. Save me and my little girl." They ran until her new acquaintance collapsed. I can't go on. Labor pains have started. While the ambulance was on its way to them, the young woman told Diana that she was an orphan, that she had fallen in love, but her chosen one turned out to be a scoundrel. She didn't have the courage to leave because her accommodation had already been sold. The woman died in the hospital, but the doctors managed to save the baby. That's how Elizabeth came into their family. They moved, and no one could ever even think that Elizabeth wasn't their own. Since then, Diana couldn't turn a blind eye to other people's misfortunes. John forgot everything that had happened. They started anew. He loved Elizabeth deeply, as his own daughter. John worked hard and achieved great results. Now their daughter, their little girl, who had just turned 24, was getting married to some unknown guy. They always knew about all her affairs, all her acquaintances. Diana called her daughter every hour, and her father was constantly worried too. Diana and John always kept abreast of their daughter Elizabeth's affairs. They considered themselves good parents and sought to protect her from any potential mistakes. When Elizabeth began dating Justin, who seemed like a perfectly normal guy at first glance and treated her well, the parents still felt distrustful. They suspected that if their daughter was hiding him from them, something was amiss. This secrecy surprised Diana because usually, when Elizabeth started new relationships, the parents managed to scrutinize the chosen one before the relationship became serious. Deciding to take action, John and Diana headed to the suburb where Justin's parents lived, opting to get there by bus since it was a typical mode of transportation for people with little money. They were confident that if Justin's family learned about their financial situation, their attitude towards Elizabeth would change, and she would be able to see her lover's true colors. On the way, John began to doubt the correctness of their decision. He suspected that their daughter's reaction might be unpredictable. She was already an adult and might take offense at their interference. Diana, on the other hand, was convinced that they were doing the right thing, only striving to help their daughter. She couldn't bear the thought that Elizabeth might take an impulsive step that would later require rescuing her. On the way to Justin's house, Diana and John immersed themselves in thoughts about what the right course of action would be, contemplating their next steps. At some point, John fell asleep and, waking up, realized that time had passed unnoticed during the journey. There was a girl standing next to Diana, smiling as she looked at the woman, but Diana was lost in thought, staring out the window, and didn't even notice her. John gently nudged Diana with his elbow. She startled, as if frightened, and finally saw the girl. She clearly lived on the streets, or if she had a home, it wasn't much different from the streets. Light hair, bright blue eyes, dirty clothes, clearly larger than needed, and a colorful scarf tied in a gypsy style. Diana smiled cautiously. "Hello, who are you?" The girl said loudly, "I'm Sarah. I can tell your fortune." Diana looked surprised at John, but he just shrugged, not making any sense of it. "Well, go ahead, but let me tell your fortune first," Diana said. The girl asked in surprise, "Can you do that?" Diana nodded confidently. "Of course. Do you doubt it?" The little girl was clearly puzzled, then after cautiously looking around, nodded, "Okay, but quickly, or my brothers will see." Diana began enthusiastically, "You really want a big family, with a mom and dad?" The girl suddenly sniffled. "How do you know?" Diana pulled a chocolate bar out of her pocket. "Do you want it?" "It's all I have. Sit down, eat." She scooted over and seated the girl between herself and John, who watched with interest. Sarah told them that she lived with gypsies, and they often beat her, calling her a nuisance. She didn't know much else. She couldn't read properly. They taught her to say what people wanted to hear and to give money, but all the money had to be brought back. If she didn't bring back even a cent, they could punish her very severely. Diana listened and nodded sadly, then asked, "Do you even want to live with them?" The girl replied in surprise, "I don't know. I've always lived there." Rosa said, "If I end up in an orphanage, they'll beat me to death there." Diana sighed, "She's lying to you. Everything is clean in the orphanage. There are many children. They play, study, have rest. Don't listen to Rosa. She's deceiving you." The woman turned to her husband. John was bewildered. He knew that look on his wife. After such a look, Diana came up with the most unreal, fantastic ideas. "John, we're getting off at the next station. Call your driver to pick us up." "Well, we're almost there." "It doesn't matter," Diana replied. "The driver won't be able to come any sooner than an hour, maybe even later." "And you, I understand, are in a hurry?" said John. Diana glared at him menacingly and said, "I am." "What do you suggest?" John coughed cautiously. "We're very close to the town where Justin lives. Let's call Elizabeth and ask her fiancé to pick us up." 20 minutes later, an old but sprightly car pulled up next to them. Justin jumped out of it. "Mr. and Mrs. Chuckle, is something wrong with you?" They completely forgot that they were dressed like beggars. "Justin, we'll explain everything to you later. Let's go quickly." Then the little girl said in a thin voice, "Oh, Rosa, she'll punish me." Diana looked to where the little one was pointing. A gypsy woman was hurrying towards them, accompanied by 2 angry men. Justin quickly caught on and said, "Quickly, everyone into the car." The guy accelerated away, and only after the town was left behind did he ask, "Did we just kidnap a child?" John and Diana exchanged glances. Diana replied, "I didn't think about how it would look." "Wait, Justin, if that's what you thought, why are you helping us?" "I trust you. You're my daughter's parents. the future son-in-law replied. While the car was moving, the girl quietly fell asleep on Diana's shoulder. She looked at the child tenderly. Something wasn't right. Why was the child living in that family? Diana asked herself questions. I'll get to the truth. Elizabeth glanced at her husband. He was quietly talking to Justin about something. He's really great, no questions asked. He'll help with anything. You can rely on him like on yourself. Justin stopped the car here. The guy looked surprised at the house. Do you live here? The woman replied, yes. Didn't you know? No, your daughter never let me escort her home. Justin fell silent for a moment, apparently digesting the information, then glanced at the girl. And what about her? Well, she'll stay with us today. I'll wash her, feed her. And tomorrow, I'll call social services. She needs help. She doesn't resemble those people at all. She was probably abducted at some point. Exiting the car, Diana suddenly turned around. Justin, we owe you an apology. He raised his eyebrows in surprise. Apology to me? Well, you see, we suspected you of not loving our daughter, of only wanting to be with her for money. That's why we dressed like beggars. We wanted to come to your parents' house like this. We're very ashamed now. Justin smiled. I'm not offended at all. And actually, I was against hiding our relationship from you for so long, but Elizabeth insisted, saying that you would find a bunch of flaws in any of her partners and convince her to break up with me. Elizabeth said embarrassedly, that's true. We love our daughter too much. We're very afraid to let her go. 3 months passed. Mom, I'm so happy. Diana wiped away her tears. For me, the most important thing is that you're happy, sweetheart. Elizabeth quickly hugged her. Mommy, why are you crying? Don't you like Justin? No, I really like him. Then why these tears? I'm crying with joy, honestly. I'm sorry, my daughter, for not letting you breathe. You know, it always seems like we know better what children need. Elizabeth laughed. Oh, if it weren't for your eternal 100% control, I would have long ago married someone else, and I wouldn't have met Justin then. So I'm very grateful to you. Diana didn't have time to respond. The door to the room swung open, and with a rustle of voluminous skirts, Amy literally flew in. Once Amy was Sarah, but they tried to forget about it as quickly as possible. Elizabeth really did get involved in the fate of the girl back then. It turned out that Amy had no parents. She disappeared from the scene of the accident where her father and mother died. At first, she was searched for, but then they stopped. All this time, the little girl helped the gypsies earn money. The more Diana talked to the girl, the more attached she became to her. John, her smart and understanding husband, saved the situation. Diana, I can see how hard it is for you, and I've already gotten used to Amy's cheerful voice, he said. Maybe Amy could be our second daughter? Diana rushed into his arms and burst into tears. Mama, Papa, look what I did. I did it myself. Honestly, the girl handed them a card with unevenly printed letters congratulating the bride and groom. Elizabeth hugged her. Amy, you're such a smart girl. You learned to write and read in such a short time. I'm very proud of you, little sister. Amy's eyes sparkled with pride, and Diana sighed. A long time ago, she and her husband agreed that they would tell Elizabeth the whole truth on the day she got married. Today was that day. Elizabeth, we need to talk very seriously. I don't know what will happen after our conversation. I don't know how you'll take it, but we've decided this. We decided that you should know. But before that, I want to say, your father and I love you more than anything in our lives, Diana said. Elizabeth nodded seriously. That's very important to me, Mom. I love you both very much, she said. Are you trying to tell me that I'm adopted? Diana collapsed into the chair, powerless. And how long have you known this? Elizabeth shrugged. Well, for a few years. I'm going to be a doctor, after all. When I found out my blood type, I realized I couldn't be your daughter. I really want nothing to change between us. They sat for a long time, embracing each other and just being silent.